The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning.
Welcome to the Jester Section Hiker Podcast with the spotlight on section hikers.
And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come. And we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river.
Welcome back to Jester Section Hiker, your premier podcast with the spotlight on section hikers, and I am your host, Julie Jester Gayhart. And I should start off this episode by wishing all of you a happy new year on this first day of 2022. I hope you all are out on your first hike of the new year with plans of many more to come, including some amazing section hikes. I am really looking forward to what this year will bring for my own section hikes and hiking adventures, and I hope to have a full year of sharing with all of you right here on the podcast. My goal moving forward with the podcast is to continue to be educational and informative with each show, continue to have on Section Hiker co-host where we talk about hiking specific topics, and continue to have the traditional Section Hiker guest interviews. If you have an interest in being on the show or co-hosting a few episodes, please reach out to me via email at jester@jestersectionhiker.com. I will also ask that if you love a particular episode, to share it out on your social media. This is the best way for the podcast to continue to grow and reach more section hikers. Another way for the show to grow and reach a broader audience is to leave a rating and review over on Apple Podcast. Just a quick reminder that Mighty Blue and I will be headed down to HangCon in Florida the weekend of January 14th through the 17th. We are going to be speaking at a couple different workshops, certainly eating some awesome food, learning more about hammocks, and hanging out with friends. If you are going to be at HangCon, please make sure to stop by and say hey. And I am really getting excited at this point to be getting my hammock set up from R&R Hammocks. I am back today with my guest, co-host Austin Wallis, as we continue sharing our 10 essential gear items list. Last week, we went over what we both bring for our navigation, headlamps, sun protection, first aid, and a knife. I do recommend going back and listening to that show as well, which was episode number 104, to get all that information on those items. And once again, in this week's show notes, you will find information on the official 10 essentials gear list we are using, which is from the Mountaineers, and access to all of mine and Austin's 10 essential gear list items that include hyperlinks to our specific gear. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode. And now on to the 10 Essentials Part 2. All right, Austin, welcome again back to the podcast.
Great to be here.
All right, you guys, we are back for the 10 Essentials Part 2. But I want to remind everybody that we are going over and utilizing the 10 Essentials list that comes from the Mountaineers. And Austin is going to remind everybody of a little bit of a statement. He's going to read to everybody a little bit of a statement that comes from the Mountaineers website.
Yeah. So we talked about it a little bit last week, that there are a lot of different lists out there, but this kind of seems to be what I call the OG 10 Essentials list. So here we go.
Yes, I love it.
The Mountaineers 10 Essentials dates back to our climbing courses of the 1930s. But this widely respected safety and packing system was formalized in the third edition of Mountaineering, The Freedom of the Hills, released in 1974. Each of the 9 editions of Freedom, as it was affectionately known, was written entirely by volunteers and reflects the collective wisdom of hundreds of outdoor skills instructors. The list has always sought to answer 2 basic questions. The first, can you prevent emergencies and respond positively should one occur? And 2, can you safely spend a night or more outside?
I love those 2 questions. And I know we spoke about this before, but as you are going through your checklist of 10 essentials, it really makes you think, can I safely spend a night outside?
Yep.
And do I have enough stuff with me to help prevent an emergency or respond positively should one occur? And I look at that as not only for myself, but maybe my hiking partner gets hurt or somebody you come across on the trail is hurt. Do I have something that would help the situation before it becomes more dire?
Exactly. The more experience you gain, the more you realize that you do have to not just think about yourself. You've got to be able to be that resource, be that asset for somebody else should they get hurt, or not necessarily just your hiking partner, but let's say you come across somebody that's hurt on the trail. They're by themselves and you're there. You come across them and you've got to help them and render aid or get them out or whatever. So yeah, that's actually a really great point.
And last week we went over the first 5 of the 10 essentials, which was navigation, headlamp, sun protection, first aid, and a knife. And Austin and I found out we use the same knife. We also wrap Leukotape around a pencil. I call it a carpenter's pencil. So we actually have some things in common, but I failed to say Happy New Year, Austin.
Yeah. Happy New Year, 2022.
2022. Wow.
Let's hope that 2021 and 2020 are a thing of the past.
Yes. Yes. And
New
let's
year.
continue. Yes. And let's continue to talk about gear.
Right.
And future section hikes and adventures.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
That's what I'm looking forward to. And I hope everybody that is listening to this on January 1st, 2022, I hope you guys are out hiking, paddling, or enjoying the outdoors in some form or fashion as you listen to this. So once again, Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year, Austin.
Happy New Year, Jester.
And we will get right to it. So let me pull up my list, which I thought I had pulled up, but I don't. So we left off with number 5, which was the knife. And both of us, as we stated, carry the mini Swiss Army knife. So now we get to number 6, which is fire.
Yeah.
Which in parentheses here on the list, as you guys will see as you take a look at it, it says waterproof matches, a lighter, or a candle. I don't know about the candle, but
I mean, to be fair, they started making these lists in the 30s. So.
Well, that is true. Thank you, Austin. You do bring perspective.
Yeah, well,
that's why I have you on the show.
As long as I've got a role.
You know what, though? I will say, I'm going to give everybody a little tip. So I don't know if you have hiked through the Smokies on the Appalachian Trail or anywhere in the Smokies where it is basically pretty much mandatory that you sleep in the shelters. I don't know if you've been through there, but I did learn a tip from a guy that was actually staying in one of the shelters because there's a huge problem with mice in these shelters in the Smokies. It's awful. They run over you. They run over your face. He had these little candles, and he said, listen, I'm going to light these little candles in the shelter. And I was thinking, oh my God, we're going to burn up. And I'm like, what is he doing that for? And he said, it's to keep away the mice. They don't like light.
Really?
Yes.
I have never heard that.
I never have either, but it worked.
Well, you know what?
I'm not hauling baby candles everywhere, but I don't know what you call them. They're the little circular candle. And I might going through the Smokies again. Yeah, little tea lights. There you go. So the candle is important in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. If you stay in the shelters, I guess the mice do not like the light. So there you go.
If I have a mouse crawl across my face, I will carry 5 pounds of those tea lights. That's what it takes. So, absolutely not.
Well, here's what happens when a mouse crawls across your face. It does it the first time, and you kind of wake up and you're like, oh my God, something went across my face.
No.
And then you snuggle back down in your sleeping bag and you get all comfortable again and you fall asleep and it does it again. And then you freak out. And that's when everybody in the shelter wakes up.
No, I would absolutely come unglued.
And it can happen multiple times during the night. So people, take your candles.
Tea lights it is.
But in all seriousness, getting back to number 6, it's the new year. We can laugh, right?
Right.
Yeah, we can have fun, which is fire. So me personally, I always carry 2 mini Bic lighters. I always have some type of fire starter. And I learned this only like a couple years ago, dryer lint.
Yep.
I mean, it weighs nothing. And you just throw some of that in there, and that's a good way to get a fire started. And I've also been given a fire starter necklace that when I remember to wear it, I wear it when I go hiking now. So for me, I used to carry waterproof matches, and I'm actually questioning myself now if I need to add those back in. So Austin, what are your thoughts on number 6, fire?
I don't think you could go wrong with waterproof matches. I'll actually carry the same. I don't carry 2, but I will carry at least 1 Bic lighter. I think 2 is probably a good idea because...
Well, that's fear. I carry 2 because of fear. Because I feel like it's not going to work.
Well, yeah, I don't think you'd ever run out of fuel. Those things last forever. But if the starter gets wet, that could be an issue. Like you might only be able to create like a tiny little spark or no spark at all. So that 2 is not a bad idea. I don't necessarily carry the waterproof matches just because I'm cheap. But I will carry some wooden matches in a waterproof case. And the case weighs practically nothing, but it's got a little striker surface on the side. And I can throw that in there. And I'm the same way. I've used dryer lint in the past. And maybe it's just my clothes, but I haven't had the greatest success with it. But other fire starters that I've used, I'm fortunate enough, I have some river birch trees in my backyard that shed their bark. And so I'll actually have some birch bark that I carry around that, again, weighs practically nothing. And I haven't tried it, but I've heard of people using cotton balls and petroleum jelly.
I've seen that before. I have not tried that myself, but I thought, well, I need to do that, but I haven't done that one yet.
Yeah, I have, like I said, it's just lazy, but definitely the matches in the waterproof case are a good one. Because even if it's wet and raining and disgusting, you've got dry matches. So.
And here's another thing I'll say about fire, and I will relate this back to part of number 1, which is the navigation, which is carrying a compass, but not only carrying the compass, knowing how to use the compass, equally as important to not only carry stuff to make a fire, but to know how to make a fire.
Yeah.
Now, I pride myself on being able to make a good fire because I see it as a competition. So, like, there's always, men around.
Gross.
No problem, ladies. We got this. We'll make the fire. We'll tend the fire.
Hey, that's your opportunity to be like, fine. That's all you, brother.
But in all seriousness, practice making a fire. Yeah. It is kind of, in your mind, you've set up this perfect little teepee and you've collected all your little kindling underneath and you just think you're going to light your little lighter and it's going to light up. And that's not really the case. It takes work.
Yeah. Well, my brother and I will give each other a hard time if it takes more than 1 match for us to start the fire. But yeah, and practice is definitely important. I'm glad you brought it up because like he and I have completely different methods. He's got, he's an engineer, so he's got the TP and he's, all the sticks have to.
Well, he and I are the same. I built a TP.
But he cringes when he watches me because I'm if you've ever watched Joe Robinette or any of the Baird brothers on YouTube, how they just get this big just monstrosity of twigs and light some birch bark and then throw the twigs on it and just let it go up in flames. That's kind of more my style.
So you're the man out there saying, get away. All right, ladies, step back. Let me go ahead and take care of this for you.
Oh, no, I will never, because it's work.
It is work. And it's work to maintain a fire.
For sure.
So that's the other thing too. Like if you get into an emergency situation, you're going to have to collect a lot of firewood to keep a fire going for, some amount of time. Mm-hmm. So that is a lot of mental and brain power too. So it also, and I know we've joked about making a fire and everybody knows those men I'm talking about, but I'm going to get some hate mail now.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, again, and reemphasize to practice at home safely in an area where you could build a fire.
And then something else, we've really gone down the fire rabbit hole on this one, but
yes, we have.
Probably worth.
It's because it's the new year.
In the spirit of the leave no trace, I cringed the last time I was in Uwharrie. It was just solo trip or whatever, and I was going looking for firewood, and I saw people had cut down live trees and then tried to burn them. So just a reminder out there for firewood, dead and down trees or wood, stuff that is clearly not living anymore. One, because green wood doesn't burn very well.
No, it does not. It's worse than wet wood.
Yeah,
really.
It doesn't do you any favors. So it's not just the leave no trace reason, but it's not going to do you any favors when you're trying to build a fire and the wood just flat out won't burn. So.
And thank you for that. Down and dead. Yes, that is the rule. Yep. And, carry the rest of your 10 essentials that we're going to finish going over. That way you have the mental capacity and the wherewithal to collect things and then actually build a fire.
Right.
There is an art to a lot of these things that we're going over in making sure that you know how to use it.
Sure.
As well. So, which leads to number 7, shelter and emergency shelter. And the Mountaineers recommends a lightweight emergency bivvy. And I will say that when I am going out on day hikes or if I'm slack packing, I do have, it's called an SOL. I don't know if you pronounce it SOL or if it's just SOL, emergency bivvy. I used to carry 2 emergency blankets. And I was like, well, that makes no sense when I can get a bivvy and actually put myself in the bivvy. Mm-hmm. I have also heard of people using or carrying extra compactor bags on day hikes and things like that. But I would say if you are going out on a long section hike or if you are out through hiking, your tent is going to be your shelter.
Right. I'm not a big day hiker, but it's probably worth mentioning because I have a bivvy and I'm not a big fan because I just get super claustrophobic in it. And so when I'm carrying, when I'm not section hiking or not doing an overnight, just having a tarp. So I've got a few different tarps. My ultralight tarp is the DCF tarp with doors from Hammock Gear. Love that thing. So you don't need a super nice tarp, but if you're not a big fan of bivvies like me, throwing up a shelter with a tarp is pretty easy. You just basically need 2 trees. And you're good to go. So
now I have a quiz for you. I have a quiz. I like that. And I am not, and I'm getting ready to, get a hammock here soon.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I am not good with putting up tarps. I'm really not. Confession. I am not good with putting up tarps. And one of the probably main reasons is that I don't get a hiking pole tent is because I don't think I could put it up right. And that's actually an art to put those up as well.
There's some finesse involved.
There is some finesse. So for those of you that know how to properly put up a tarp, because the last thing I want to do, the reason I choose a bivvy is because I don't want to have to think.
Yeah.
But if you know how to put up a tarp, you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking because you know how to do it anyway. So that is a great suggestion. And is that something, the quiz is, do you take your tarp with you when you paddle for the day?
No.
Okay, I'm hitting the boo button again. Boo.
And I guess you're right. We should, like, because I just did
the most dangerous hiker is the day hiker, and the most dangerous paddler is the day paddler.
I'll definitely
So
agree with
says
you
Jester.
there. I'll definitely agree with you there. Yeah, because I mean, especially whitewater kayakers can paddle through some pretty remote areas. Whether you're in a gorge or I paddled the French Broad River, the Segment 9 a couple weeks ago, but it's a gorgeous paddle. But if you've got an emergency for whatever reason on the river and you get stranded out there, it's probably not a bad idea to have something, and it's just a matter of what makes the most sense as far as space and weight and all that other fun stuff. So,
and that's a good point to bring up too. When you all who are listening are going through your 10 essentials list, it will also be what makes the most sense for where you're hiking, what you're doing, and what part of the country you're on, and that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind as well. So the next one, number 8, is extra food. And I see this in different levels. So I'm going to go back to the day hike. So on a day hike, I will actually carry a full day of food like I'm going to go overnighting. And typically I have that food, the same day of food. I don't touch it. I keep it in the same bag.
mm-hmm.
And every once in a while I have to go in there and exchange things. I know it's gross, but I always have extra food, and that is separate from like my snacks I'm going to eat that day, or maybe even my lunch I carry, or an apple or something like that. But when I'm out section hiking or going on a long hike, on a longer trail, case in point, like the JMT or long sections of the AT or wherever you're going, I have fear that I'll run out of food. So I always carry extra food.
You're not
but
alone.
I know some people that will take it right to, like, that day they're going to roll into town and get their resupply. I cannot mentally do that. Like, I would just be worried to death as a hiker that I'm going to run out of food. So I always carry extra. And number 8 is bring extra food. How much depends on the circumstance, I think.
Yeah. How much that's a hard question to even begin to address. I like the idea of keeping that day's worth of food as kind of a reserve. I like bringing food, at least like on the day paddles and the day hikes and stuff like that. Things that are going to get the most bang for the buck. And that comes with protein and calories. And so I'll do the pro bar meals or meal bars, however you say it, but I'll buy them by the case now just because I like them. I've finally been able to eat one since the JMT, because I had one every day on the JMT, and
they get old quick.
It made me nauseous to think about. but they're really great, just because they've got a lot of everything you need packed into a small package. So you get a lot out of them. But yeah, and it's hard to, going back to the JMT, like I was the guy that rolled into town with one meal left in the bear can when we were taking our zero in Independence. And that wasn't necessarily because I was like, I don't need that much food. It was, the bear can, there is a finite amount of real estate in that thing.
Exactly.
And so we were rolling 6 days of food, and it just wouldn't all fit. So it was kind of out of necessity that I was, rolling into town on fumes. I still had plenty of food. I was never hungry, but yeah, sometimes that's the
you went out of your comfort zone a little bit.
Well, and I even talked about it in the video a little bit. I said, if something had gone wrong and we were out there for longer than what we had planned, would have had some problems. I mean, and there was, I don't know how else we could have gotten around that other than, pushing through or whatever, but it was not, it was a potentially bad situation. We were fine. But it did cross my mind as I was looking at an empty bear can.
And I think the rule of thumb for my thought process, and it sounds like yours too, at least one extra dinner.
Yeah.
And maybe a couple snacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me feel good, makes me feel better.
Yeah. Cause that's at least going to get you to the next step, wherever that is. If you've got to tap into that reserve.
Yeah. And it could be an extra overnight, and maybe that morning, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you could have your couple snacks and get out. It's really the kind of the way that I look at it. I think we're on the same page. Yay.
Yeah. Right on.
Perfect. All right. Number 9, extra water and filtration. So here's another thing. So the water filter that I use is, and I don't know how to say this properly, but I think it's the Katadyn Be-Free water filter. It's the 1 liter, and that thing is awesome.
I have heard a lot of good things about that.
It is awesome. I've been using that since the first time I used that was in 2018, when me and a couple girlfriends, we went out to Zion, and we went through the Narrows.
Nice.
It was awesome. You'll love the Narrows, Austin, I'm telling you. But that was my first time using that filter, and it's what I'm using until the next best thing comes out. I have never used a Sawyer. So where are you at with filter?
I do the Sawyer squeeze.
Okay.
And I've never had any real issues with it. It's one of those things, just like any piece of equipment, you got to take care of it. So you mentioned Zion. When we went backpacking, we went to Escalante National Monument, did Coyote Gulch in Utah. Oh, so cool.
Gorgeous.
But the water down in the gulch is like chocolate milk. It's got lots and lots of sediment. It's still safe water. It's just got a lot of sediment in it. And so we would end up having to, so I also carry, in addition to the Sawyer squeeze, I carry a Knockfecto 2-liter dirty bag. And I like that because it's got the big wide opening that you can scoop water with. And so we would actually have to scoop the water, hang it in a tree, and let the sediment settle to the bottom, then let out all the crud, and then filter what had, the clean water. The reason for that story is that you have to backflush the Sawyer squeeze on a regular basis for it to work. And so my rhythm is, before I leave for a trip, I'll backflush it, and then I'll use it. If it's a long trip, then I might have to backflush it while I'm out there. But then when I get back, I will backflush it again before I put it up in storage. So it's just one of those things. I've never used the Katadyn. I thought about it just to try to switch things up, but I just haven't pulled the trigger. But the Sawyer's done me well. I can't complain.
I think of what I hear and what people have said before, and what I've heard on other podcasts it's one or the other. People are either using the Sawyer or they're using the Katadyn. So it's personal preference, kind of like the Spot or the InReach Mini or the Explorer. It's your personal preference. But I will say, before we move on to number 10, I like to have, and this goes to the extra water, which is actually number 9, extra water, the capacity to carry 4 liters of water at all times. That's my standard.
And I'm the same way. 4 liters is what I would, if I'll carry 2 1-liter bottles, and then my Knockfecto bag is a 2-liter. So that's 4 liters total. But I'm the same way. And I know other hikers that do 1 liter, and then they'll have their dirty bag, or they'll have like 1.5 liters. And I just drink a lot of water.
And I like water.
And I also don't want to limit myself. Like if I'm thirsty, that's my body telling me that I need water.
Yeah. And when I see it, I always fill up. And it gets annoying to people that hike with me. And I'm like, oh, well.
But the Katadyn's pretty user-friendly as far as
it is.
Like,
and actually on the JMT, I had 2 1-liter water bottles, and I carried 2 Katadyn 1 liters.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the capacity to carry 4 liters. I never had to carry more than 2 for the time that we were out there. So it worked out. The capacity of 4 works out awesome.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, you never had that issue on the JMT, but definitely when you're out here in the Smokies or anything like that, there are, sections on the MST where you do have to carry extra water because there's, 10 miles or something like that in between water sources.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I definitely don't like to run out of water, even though I know it's only like a couple miles to get to water, because that messes with your mind. And I don't like that. Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, you're automatically thirsty. Your tongue's dry. It's sticking to the top of your mouth, even though that's really not the case, but you could mentally put yourself there.
For sure.
So water, very important. And number 10, last but not least, extra clothes. And you guys, I have said this before, so I will not get on my soapbox again. I always, always, always carry day hike, section hike, long distance hike, a rain jacket, a rain pants, and my trusty Patagonia Houdini wind jacket. It is awesome. It is lightweight. It works in a crunch. It's not waterproof, but in those cool mornings you could throw that on. In those cool evenings you could throw that on in a crunch. So Austin, tell us about your extra clothes, and please tell me you carry your rain gear. Or I'm going to hit that. I'm going to hit that boo button again.
I carry rain gear even when there's a zero chance of rain.
Same.
And so I'll carry the Outdoor Research Helium 2 jacket. But you don't necessarily have to have a fancy rain jacket or anything.
No,
like
you
that.
don't.
It just has to be something that's going to keep you dry. And every piece of rain gear is eventually going to wet out. If you're in a downpour for 18 hours, you're going to get wet. But it's at least that extra layer of protection. But I've also I'm a big fan. I've got a down jacket that keeps me warm. Problem with down is it's not very good with water and rain.
Yeah.
And I have recently jumped on the Appalachian Gear alpaca hoodie bandwagon. I love that thing, man. It is just as awesome as everybody says it is.
That's all right. I've gone on one of the seller sites on Facebook. I got me a Melanzana. So there you go, everybody. We're on the bandwagons.
But, because I've always said, like, you don't have to spend lots of money for good gear. Like, sometimes there's just good gear that's not expensive. The alpaca hoodie is insanely expensive for one piece of clothing, but I think it's worth it because, I just mentioned like the down jacket doesn't do well with,
right.
moisture. That wool, that alpaca wool is going to keep you warm no matter what. So that's why I like it. And it's just super comfy and super light.
This is the way I look at it too. So it's quality. And for those, of us that go out and section hike or we're day hiking, we need our gear to last multiple years.
Right.
And you got to pay for the quality. For
sure.
So that's what I tell myself when I'm looking at very expensive pieces of gear.
Yeah. I mean, whatever we got to tell ourselves to make that click of the button. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think it's probably worth mentioning, in the last 2 episodes, we've talked about gear that we use, and I'm definitely an example of not necessarily the right way to do it. It's just my way of doing it. And so that's the beauty of our sport, is that there are so many different ways to do it. So many different pieces of gear. I mean, just between the two of us, we have different shelters and different water filtration. We've got different flashlights and headlamps and everything. So we've demonstrated there's multiple ways to do it, and you don't necessarily have to go with what either one of us have said. The beauty is just experimenting on your own and finding what works for you. So there's no right or wrong answer out there.
No, there is no right or wrong. What's wrong is not carrying the 10 essentials. Yeah. There, I'll say it. So there you go.
That's it.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Austin, thank you again. We've got 2 more things that I want to go over. There's actually an 11th essential, which if you follow Leave No Trace principles, it's carrying a trash bag, an additional trash bag to help keep our public lands clean. And Austin's 12th essential that he has gone over a few episodes back. Austin, what's your 12th essential?
The proper mindset. And that goes along as I look back at the Mountaineer 10 Essentials little blurb that we talked about at the very beginning. Can you prevent emergencies and respond positively should one occur? And I think a positive mindset or a proper mindset is probably the best thing you can do for that particular question. To keep yourself out of those emergencies, make good decisions before it even gets to the point where you're in an emergency. But yeah, proper mindset, 12th essential.
All right, you guys, we've done it. The 10 essentials, the 11th essential, number 12, Austin's coined 12th essential, a proper mindset. So Austin, I'm going to have you read that.
Got a little poetry to finish
Got
up
a little
the episode.
poetry coming on. I know I lost my place in the notes. I'm going to have you, it's called the 10 Essential Limerick. So Austin, fire away.
Here we go. To navigate, head for the sun. With first aid and knife on the run. Bring fire and shelter. Extra food is a helper. but water and clothes weigh a ton.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the show notes. All the information is there. You can find my gear list. You can find Austin's gear list. They are hyperlinked. You can go straight to and get our exact gear. My hope with these 2 episodes is that you really think and ponder what your 10 essential gear is, and you add to it if you need to. Austin, any closing thoughts?
Good times.
All right, you guys. Austin will be back in February, and I'll be right back here next Saturday. Thanks.
We'll see you then.
Thanks for joining me again this week, Austin, and sharing your gear items, your knowledge, and always and overall good times every time we record. Austin will be back for another episode in February, and I think we are finally going to talk about his favorite tent. And when I say favorite tent, it's not a brand that I am very familiar with at all. As always, you can go to hikingradionetwork.com and click on the Jester Section Hiker Show to find all of today's show notes, pictures, and links mentioned in this episode. If you find value in what we do here at the network, you can donate to us by clicking on any one of the donate buttons found on our website. Thanks for listening. Be safe out there, and happy section hiking.
I'm wondering if you'd go wandering with me through the wilderness and woods to where the winds are blowing free, through the darkness of the night, heading toward the morning light. I wonder if you'd wander with me, and I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. You're wondering if I go wandering with you, what kind of trouble we'll get ourselves into. Would it be wrong to tag along with a band of vagabonds? You wonder if I'd wander with you. So I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods. I'm wondering if you'd come wandering my way, if you ever get lost or if the trail leads you astray. The music of the pack can always bring you back. I wonder, can we wander away? And I'll spread the word and you beat the drum. We'll round up the troops and get the gang to come, and we'll leave the streets and these neighborhoods, head over the river and through the woods.
The holidays start here at Baker's with a variety of options to celebrate traditions old and new. Whether you're making a traditional roasted turkey or spicy turkey tacos, your go-to shrimp cocktail, or your first Cajun risotto, Baker's has all the freshest ingredients to embrace your traditions. Baker's, fresh for everyone.
We've locked in low prices to help you save big store-wide. Look for the locked in low prices tags and enjoy extra savings throughout the store. Baker's, fresh for everyone.